Alright, in this video we start to create our own node tree inside Davinci Resolve. That means we start to balance our image and get it to a point where it's almost 80% to the final result that we are looking for. And if you missed my last video but you're interested in the whole process, go ahead, watch the last video and then come back to this one. Without further ado, let's get into Davinci Resolve and start creating. Alright, so we are on our color grading page in Davinci Resolve. Now I would say we are going with this clip right here, not just because my beautiful face is in it. No, there's a lot of skin tone, and that's probably the most important part when it comes to color grading. Let's do a little bit of re-engineering and start with the last node and work our way to the first node. All right, so the last node you see is on our timeline. This is our CST out. We are working in a Davinci wide gamut and Davinci intermediate workspace. And the only reason for that is that it is a huge color space, so your image doesn't fall apart that easy. Then we go into our second node. We open this one, and this is our CST in. All right, so you see our CST. Oh yeah, I gotta come clean. In the last video I said that for your Apple ProRes you need to choose your input color space Apple and Gamma L. Apple, I think it's Apple Log 2. This is obviously when you are shooting on your Apple iPhone or something, but if you like shooting on a Nikon, just go ahead and choose the Rec 2020 and Nikon Analog. That's because that's what Nikon is using. Now we already at our first node. First node should always be your noise reduction. Be aware if you're using noise reduction is always pretty tough on your computer. So check your image up front if you have to use it, or if you lit your scene so well that you don't have to do all the noise reduction. And we can easily check for that. There is a little bit of noise in there, but it's okay. There's not a lot of magenta and green. I mean, you can see it if I zoom in all the way. And you see there's a lot of noise, but who crops in like this? All right, just to show you what happens. If you're using noise reduction, go all the way in, turn it off, turn it on. You see the difference? So this is with noise reduction, and this is without noise reduction. A clear difference, but I don't want to mess up my computer, so I turn it off, okay? After our CST in, let's add a few nodes. So the next node after your CST, this would be your balance node. So since this is Apple ProRes, we can go into our camera raw. The way I shot this image was very warm. I think I shot this at 5600 or 5800 Kelvin. And the lights you see, practical light and the key light, they are at 3200. Okay, so this was on purpose just to show you what the color temperature slider can do in raw files. So this would be balancing your shot, get it to a point where it is pretty much neutral to your eyes. And so let's say 3200 is the way to go. But let's say you do have some H265 files, okay? Then you would go into your primaries, to your offset wheel, and grab this little dot right here. Then you can slide it into the warm side or the cold side just to get your white balance correct. But just check out how sensitive this little dot is. If you're grading like me and you don't have this Blackmagic micro panel, but just your stupid Apple Magic Mouse, you would have a pretty hard time to maneuver this little dot. Okay, there's a better way to manage your color temperature, your white balance, and that would be just click the balance, go into your gamma, choose linear, and now you can go into your gain wheel. Now you can go into the gain wheel and look at the difference. Like here, there's just so much more room to play with before it starts to get crazy orange and crazy blue. Let's switch back to the use timeline. All right, so now you see here it already starts to get blue, really like the blue main group blue. Okay, this is just right here, and let me show you. Let's switch this to linear again. So that's the difference. You see, I just have to go all the way down here to get the same bloom and look that I had. Since I used the camera raw page for balancing my shot, we can go ahead and address our exposure in this image. Probably the first exposure tool that I was introduced to was the offset in our primaries. If you go into your offset, underneath the wheel you see the numbers of red, green and blue, and underneath that is a slider. So if I go to the left, you see it gets darker. If I go to the right, you raise the exposure. Then there's another tool. You can go into your HDR, and this is the way I prefer it, because the HDR global wheel and the slider down here, the exposure wheel, works a little bit more photometric. This means it almost affects the image in post the same way you would change your exposure in camera from f4 to f2, f1.4. You're letting more light hit your sensor. And this is just the same here. Just like the switch from use timeline in your balance node to linear, you have a way less sensitive exposure tool, and you can slide it all the way to the right. So right now I just raised the exposure about a stop. Now, like you see 1 point, let's say. So here, this is 1 stop. If I go the other way to -1 stop, this is what it looked like. I really have to scroll to the left side. Okay, but let's see the difference between those two tools. I'm going to add another node. This right here is the global wheel, and this is the offset. Okay, let's compare these two tools, these two exposure tools with one another. And I raise in the offset. Let's turn this off. I go into our primaries and I raise the image. All right. So I raise it here. We grab a still from our offset. I go ahead, use our global wheel and our HDR. Go ahead. And try to match those two. So go a little bit lower with our global and match it to the offset image. I gotta go back higher. All right, and we are now at a point where the highlights match. Yep. Now we matched our highlights, but let me show you the difference in the lower end, in the shadows. So you probably see why I like to use the global wheel. And we zoom all the way into my hair. All right. Okay. So before I slide all the way to the right, you see this is the offset right here. You see a little bit like milky shadows, but watch the global wheel when you see the difference. So here, this is the offset. Go even further into it. So this is the offset, and here is the global wheel. So the offset always addresses the contrast more than the global wheel. Let's make this bigger So you see the difference. Okay, right, keep your eyes here on this part of the waveform. This is the left side of the image. And let me slide the splitter or the image split all the way to the left side. And remember, the right side here is the offset. Okay, so there you see, this makes all the difference in color grading. And this is why I like to use the global wheel for changing my exposure in post, because it is a true exposure adjustment tool. You separate the exposure change from the contrast that you want in the image. I can now go into my custom curves and use it in the same node. This is just for convenience. Not necessary to do, but nodes can get messy pretty fast, and I want to avoid that. That's why I like to have a minimal node tree as much as possible. By any means, if you like to have it organized, each node doing something else, go ahead and add another node, but add a parallel node to change your contrast, because the node tree works as a funnel. The further you go into your node tree, you're working with less and less amount of data. So this node right here is using all the information from the balance, and this node also using all the information they're coming out of the balance node. This is just the same as using one node, but it is more organized to use a parallel node here. But before we go into our contrast, I like my image more on the darker side. So let's go back to our global wheel and all right, like this. This is what I like, but it is still a flat look. I want to stretch my image and make it a little bit more 3D popping. I can go ahead and, let's say, click the three dots from here and add editable spline. Grab this little dot here and you can create like really beautiful curves. Like go ahead and raise the highlights a little bit, go lower, give it a little bit more of film simulation look where the highlights are more compressed, and raise the shadows to get more information in it, but also like keep it dark but add a little bit more information. Okay, this is not good looking. Lower the highlights again. Okay, so we are getting there. And just to show you the skin tone, let's add another node, the DCTL node, just to check the skin tones. I use the mono nodes from a German colorist, and what you see here is like, if your skin is yellow, you nailed the skin tone. Okay, just to show you in a vector scope. All right, so we do have choose our qualifier. Right now you see here, you see the vector scope. This is the skin line, and if I hover over my skin tone, right, the skin tones right here, it is like the line is in the middle of this circle. That means you nailed your skin tones. But here's the thing: if you change the curve, the custom curve, you mess up your middle gray. Like I say, you use your editable splines. You go ahead, you do this. See how this part here is moving all the way from here to here to here. You do want to avoid that, and the way that you avoid that is, let's add another node. You download the free middle grade cheat sheet from Cullen Kelly, and you subscribe to his channel because he's a real colorist. Or you download the free DCTL middle gray from Mono Nodes, which I have right here. DCTL, you go into your mono middle gray, then down here there is linear. And since we are grading in Davinci Intermediate color space, you choose Davinci Intermediate. Then you go ahead, hover over this gray bar right here. Then you click it and delete the DCTL again. And now you do have an anchor point right here, the middle gray tone. And you can go ahead now and change your custom curves to your liking. Okay, you can go ahead. You can still work with your edible spline. You can raise the shadow, get it lower. You can grab this point right here. You can compress your highlights, bring them back up a little bit. And now you have a beautiful contrast that can go a little bit darker in the shadows. And this would be to your liking. All right, so now as you see, this would mean that I now have two nodes. So what I like to do is I grab my middle gray. All right, DCTL, grab my middle gray. I'm in Davinci Intermediate, so 0.336, and delete the DCTL. Now I do have an anchor point here in my HDR wheel and change the exposure. Give it lower again. And now I can grab here my custom curves, bring them up, bring this down. This, bring my shadows up a little bit. And lower them again. So now I have a little bit more information in it. We do have a much more beautiful contrast than before. And this is what I mean by these three nodes right here. They get you to 80% of the end result that you were going for with 20% of your effort. Okay, watch this. This is how easy it is to get it to 80% of your look. So I want to change my balance. On H265, I'd add a balance node, but since I'm working with RAW file, let's change this to 3200, the way I shot it in. Okay, so use this node to get my middle gray. I choose my mononode middle gray. I go from linear to Davinci Intermediate. I grab the middle gray with my qualifier, then I delete it again. There I have my middle gray now, and I can, let's say, like, and now go into our global wheel. This is way too bright for me. I go all the way down, like to 3/4. So I lower the exposure of about a 3/4 of a stop. Then I would like to erase the highlights again. But to give it a more filmic look, I compress my highlights all the way down here. Get a little bit more in my shadow. Get a little bit more information on my shadows, but to bring them down. So something like this would do it. Okay, and all right, that'll do it for me, and I'm done. Okay, from here on now, I would go into my notes and create a look that I want for a particular project, which means the next node could be situation. If I look at my shirt, this is not the same blue as in real life, and it is overall a little bit too desaturated to match the real life color, but I do like the desaturation look like Fincher does it, but I'll save the part of creating the look for the next video. All right, so with that being said, if you like this video so far, leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And yeah, I'm tired. So I'll see you in the next one. Peace.